Hi, it's Pastor Anthony. This is part 3 of a 3-video series on abuse. In the first video, part 1, we talked about what to do if you already are sure you're being abused or somebody that you know is being abused. What should you do? Well, in the first video, what we talked about was that you need to not wait, you need to get safe right away, right now. Don't wait, get safe. Call 911 if you have to, break out of the house if you have to, but don't wait, get safe. In part 2, we talked about different kinds of abuse and what forms abuse can take. Some of us might not realize that we're being abused, and hopefully in part 2, some of you who are experiencing abuse realized and were able to see the abuse for what it is. And so that means you need to stop waiting and get safe and do something about it. Now, in this third video, we're going to talk about physical and sexual abuse. And these kinds of abuse are extremely dangerous and extremely destructive. So if at any point in this video you realize that you are being physically or sexually abused or have been abused by somebody, you need to stop watching the video and get safe right now. Call 911 if you have to. Go to a shelter if you have to. Call a hotline if you have to. All of that information is going to be in the description for this video below. But just don't wait. Get safe. With that said, let's talk about physical abuse and sexual abuse. Now, like we said in part 2, abuse is really all about control and about one person trying to keep control and keep power over another person. And unfortunately, with physical and sexual abuse, they use physical or sexual violence to maintain that control. So with physical abuse, physical violence or aggression is directed at someone or something to keep control of the abused person. Now, a lot of times we think of this mainly in terms of somebody being slapped or hit or kicked or punched or burned or, having a knife pulled on them, cut or shot at, and all of those things. If you are experiencing any of those things, you need to stop watching this video and get safe. Call 911, get yourself safe, do whatever you have to do. Go to the police station, go to an abuse shelter, right? Now, that is not the only form that physical abuse can take. In fact, sometimes you may be sitting there and you might be thinking, well, you know what? My boyfriend, he's never hit me, he's never kicked me, all he's done is get really angry and punch some holes in the wall, demolish the table or demolish the chair, or maybe he didn't do those things. Maybe he picked up your cat and broke its leg or threw your dog across the room. And all of these things are actually forms of physical abuse. Even though the abuse wasn't directed directly against a person, the physical violence and aggression was in the presence of a person or related to a person or clearly viewed later by the person. And in all of these cases, they're using physical aggression to maintain control over that person. So maybe they're not using their physical aggression and their violence against the person directly, but by doing it indirectly, they are still maintaining that kind of control and power over that person. And these kinds of situations can escalate really quickly, and a person can cross that line from breaking down chairs and putting holes in the wall to punching you out. And so you need to not wait. You need to get safe. If you're in a relationship that has a person breaking and destroying things in your presence or throwing your animals across a room, like, this is dangerous. You need to stop waiting, stop messing around, get safe. Unfortunately, that is not the only way that physical abuse can be manifested. It can also be manifested through, like, slavery. Maybe this significant other is really or or maybe the parent is forcing the spouse or the child to work as a slave, and they work all day long, and they're in a sweatshop, and they're being treated like animals, and or maybe they're being maltreated in terms of not being given food or water or sufficient clothing, or not being allowed to sleep enough hours in the day. Like, all of these things kept, like, these are all forms of actually physical abuse. Just because the person isn't actually hitting the person or whipping the person or any of those things doesn't mean that it is not abuse. These things are abuse. Being treated and worked like a slave is a kind of abuse. But then that brings us to sexual abuse. And unfortunately, sexual abuse is horrible. It is incredibly demeaning and destructive, and it's so hateful. God hates it. I hate it. Everybody in this world should hate it. But there are evil people also in this world who perpetrate sexual abuse. Now, sexual abuse isn't just with children. In fact, sexual abuse happens sometimes within marriages, even within romantic partners. So in the case of romantic partners or husbands and wives, what form it takes could be anywhere from just really forcing the person to have sex unwillingly to literally sexually forcing themselves on the person. I mean, just because you're married doesn't mean that if the person won't take no for an answer and they physically force themselves on you or on someone else and just force the sexual act, that's not rape. That is rape. And that's sexual abuse. And on top of that, it could even go to forcing the person to really participate in sexual acts that involve violence, like sadistic acts or masochistic acts. Like, those kinds of things can be sexual abuse. When the person is forcing this on the other person, that is sexual abuse. On top of all of that, they can even use their sexuality or sexual experiences to maintain control. Remember, it's still about control. So they can either have sex with people in front of the person and force the person to watch other sexual acts, force them to watch porn with them. All of these things can be forms of sexual abuse. On top of that, they could even put the person in situations where they're being raped by someone else, where they're prostituting their partner, that kind of thing. These are forms of sexual abuse, and they're horrible. If you're experiencing any of these kinds of things, you need to stop waiting and get safe. Just don't wait. Get safe right now. Call 911. Do what you have to do. Break out of the house. Get safe. And remember, no matter what your partner may have said, the police really can help you. They really can. They have safe places for you to go, and they're very good at hiding people who need to be hidden and protecting people who need to be protected. That's their job. They get paid to do it. Unfortunately, sexual abuse also takes place against children, and this can include all the evil sexual abuse that was already mentioned, and on top of that, could involve inappropriate sexual touching or contact. It can mean stripping the person naked or taking inappropriate photos or making them watch sexual acts or those kinds of things. All of these things are incredibly horrible, very destructive to children, and if you know that this is happening, if you suspect it is happening, you need to stop waiting. You need to get these people, get these kids safe, get them safe. Go to the cops, call 911, quit thinking about what could happen to the other person or the relationship. You need to think about what could happen to that child. No child deserves to live a life having all of that kind of baggage. So protect them and stop it before it really gets bad, before it escalates into even greater evil. So unfortunately, these two kinds of abuse, physical abuse and sexual abuse, are extremely destructive. And You need to not wait. You need to get safe. So in these 3 videos, what we have seen is that you need to stop waiting and get safe. If at any time you have realized that you are experiencing abuse or that you've been abused, you need to stop waiting, get safe, do whatever it takes to get safe, and also really find a good quality counselor. The links to Focus on the Family and their phone number and all of that to really help you connect with a good counselor in your area will be in the description of this video. And hopefully through all of this series, you have been equipped and empowered to really to not wait and to get safe. So that's my prayer for anyone watching this who's being abused or knows someone is abused, that you don't wait and that you get safe.